So the definition of an unrestored vehicle is kind of subjective, but in this case, I'm going to use it. Basically, this is a reference to most of the old hardware of the vehicle. Yes, this truck has a rebuilt engine in it and a rebuilt transmission in it, and most of the rest of it's basically original, but this truck still has like a carburetor that was never rebuilt. It's not fuel injected or anything like that. There's no like block heater of any kind, basically. You guys maybe can see my breath. I'm not really sure how that'll look on camera, but it's about 35 degrees right now. It's taking a little bit to warm up, but you guys saw a second ago, it started right up after just the second try. I don't think that's bad for an engine like this. No choke, it's just wide open. I'll take it. So, if you guys remember my original video showing you some of the features of this truck, I'll summarize it for you.
There are none.
Alright, but seriously, this is actually a pretty sweet truck. But the truck actually does have some other kind of interesting features. I'll show you. I gotta show you anyway. It's warming up. I don't really want to drive it yet until it's a little warmer. So we got our headlight switch, which you pull, and it also has a dimmer tied to it. And like a lot of older American cars, if you turn it all the way counterclockwise, this light comes on. We've got our heater. This is actually your climate control. This is all the way hot. This is cold. This is the fan. Right now it's off. And this thing even has a defroster. You can switch between defrost. It's got some vents up here. Or it'll go on the floor. Obviously we're going to want it on the floor. Right as soon as that hits around 170, this heater will basically toast you, even in this weather. So I'm excited for that. I still wish these would make a comeback, these quarter windows. So a lot of old school vehicles only have 5 odometer places. So that white one on the right is actually like decimal. So it's showing that Betsy's got 5,178 miles. Betsy rolled over. She actually has 105,000 miles on her. We got our radio delete plate, which I think is pretty cool actually. You could order these trucks without a radio. This one never had one. I had one in it for a brief period of time. It's just not hooked up right now, so instead of having that big gaping hole, I just put the plate back in. You have your ashtray, which is actually removable. Yeah, there we go. We do have 2 sun visors, which work, and they even rotate, which is pretty sweet. And all right, we're almost at 170 here. So I'm just gonna drop the hammer on the heater because I'm gonna go out and show you guys something. So I actually put those side pipes on. I think it was a great addition when I put the V8 in here. I think it's pretty sweet. It's kind of like old school hot rod, American muscly. And also I didn't feel like rounding it past the rear axles. So on early pickup trucks, you actually didn't have your traditional latch in the middle. There's nothing there. Instead, you have these J-hooks. I'll show you guys under the hood real quick, but I don't think you're going to be able to actually hear me say anything. So maybe I'll just mute this and put music there. We'll see. So if you guys consider what this thing actually is, and by that I mean a 1960s truck with no insulation or creature comforts whatsoever, this thing's actually reasonably quiet, like once you start driving. Like, yeah, you're gonna hear some wind noise on the highway and stuff, but aside from that high idle issue that I'm dealing with, it's actually like a pretty quiet running vehicle. It's pretty quiet to drive it overall. I mean, yeah, the exhaust is loud, but you know, I'm talking about like outside. You don't hear a lot of like outside. I mean, yeah, you hear road noise, but it's not as bad as some people make it out to be. This thing can do modern speeds just fine, kinda. Like, you know, you can kind of just cruise at like 60, 65, but even then, I only like to do that for short periods of time. This truck has like 456 gearing in it. It was really designed for, you know, to be a work truck. It's a 3/4 ton pickup truck from the 60s. So basically what you didn't have for torque, you had in gearing, which compensated for it, but at the expense of your top speed. it wasn't that big of a deal back in the 60s because people didn't go as fast as they do now. But, you know, now people are going like 80 miles an hour and stuff like that. This truck just can't compete. You really can't go that fast in a truck like this. You'll blow it up. You'll rev the engine too high. Later on, I'm thinking about doing something about that. I think I might put like a lower gear in it. I honestly don't really have many intentions to tow with this truck. Maybe just periodically, but, you know, I'm not going to make it like a tow pig or anything like that. I did not buy this truck to tow things. This is a terrible truck to tow with. So there is one other really cool thing about this truck. You can be driving around at your normal like highway speeds or whatever, or like kind of close to it, and you don't have any like crazy shaking or anything like that. A lot of people think old cars like shake and they make weird sounds. Okay, well, you got me on the weird sounds. But it doesn't really shake at high speeds just for no reason. Like it doesn't seem like anything's falling apart. I inspected the front end thoroughly. The steering's nice and tight. Yeah, it might as... There we go, maybe you can see me. The steering is basically like new on this truck. Everything is really tight. Whoever had it before me definitely paid attention to the service intervals. You have to basically grease up these old front ends because they ride metal on metal. But as long as you keep those greased up, they go just fine for a long time. You can probably hear the squeaking now, but we appear to have lost a headlight. So let's see what's up with that. That doesn't happen on new cars, guys. It's always a relief when you get where you're going. I think someone's coming. You can kind of hear them because there's nothing around here. So I got Joe right here from
Moore's Motorsports.
Moore's Motorsports. And he so generously came up here and drove, and he's going to help me. All right, so more on that later. But right now we're on the highway driving Betsy, going about 55, 60 miles an hour. You can clearly see it's a lot louder. She's really not meant for the highway, but we're only going a really short distance here. The speedometer reads about 15 miles an hour fast. So trust me, we are not going 75. Let me be really clear though, regardless of how well this thing drives, just, you know, for what it is, there is no mistake whatsoever. This truck is from an old world. Cars will never be made like this ever again, not even in the military. And that's something to really think about. Military vehicles aren't even this stripped down anymore. It's insane to think about. But it's got a really harsh ride to it, although for the era it was actually very good because this truck does not have leaf springs, which is actually pretty impressive. But half the transmission's not synchronized. You kind of have to like baby it into gear. It takes about 1.5 seconds to 2 seconds to actually put the truck into your next gear. And I'm actually not exaggerating that figure even a little bit. It's like 1.5 to 2 seconds every shift. Here, I'll do it right now. First gear, second gear. And that's basically the quickest that you can shift the truck because it won't let you put it into gear sooner. All right, so in conclusion, I think old cars are cool because they're just so different. They're not fast unless you spend thousands and thousands of dollars on new parts. They're not particularly fun to drive, and if anything, they're actually kind of annoying sometimes, especially if you look at mine that's got 3.5 gears, basically. You know, one's a granny gear, it's got 4 technically. So they're not particularly fun to drive. They get terrible fuel economy on average. There are some exceptions to that. There's some old cars that actually get excellent fuel economy. Really, it all just comes down to the experience. And, you know, some people like the thrills of like an exotic sports car, but some other people like the thrill of owning something just extremely old and, you know, there's nothing else quite like it. A lot of these cars were hand-built the same way a lot of newer high-end cars are. So in some smaller ways, each car is actually different than the one before it. There's a lot of soul put into these old cars, basically. And you just can't imitate it with like a newer car just because they're so different. So I hope I've given you guys some explanation on this, but the reality of the situation is you either like it or you don't, pretty much. Don't know if my hair is messed up. So I hope you guys like this video. Make sure you like and subscribe if you did. Maybe tell some friends, because I'm having a great time making these videos for you guys. So thanks for watching. I'll see you next time.